Which Barbie movie is the greatest? Maybe you love Princess and the Pauper. Maybe you're on the younger Gen Alpha side and you love some of the newer ones, like A Fashion Fairy Tale. Perhaps you feel extremely nostalgic for Barbie and Nutcracker. When I was 7 years old in 2006, I first laid eyes on the 12 Dancing Princesses and my life was forever changed. I decided to make it my entire personality. I have decided ever since then that if I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Genevieve, and I stand by that. 7-year-old me knew what she was doing. I learned all of the dance steps, I got the Genevieve costume, and I was trying to kind of go for a Genevieve type feel today. I looked into getting a Genevieve dress, but it was very expensive and seemed like a sensory nightmare. So we're going with a light cosplay, Disney bounding type situation. I'm of the opinion that the 12 Dancing Princesses might be the best Barbie movie, but does it actually hold up, or am I just, looking at it with nostalgic rose-colored glasses? Let's pirouette into the past and find out. We start off really strongly with a scene that really quickly gets across all the characters and everything we need to know. We have the king talking to a Preminger lookalike. I feel like they use the same character model for him. This man is bragging about how there are so many peasants and potatoes in his country, and I don't think that's the flex that you think it is. But anyway, now the king's daughters come through. First we get the triplets, Janessa, Kathleen, and Lacey, and they are chasing after a beetle. The girls' main hobby is that they really enjoy collecting bugs. Etymology, if you will. I don't think that's the right word. I'll look it up later. Anyway, Lacey is the youngest. She's the runt of the litter, and she's chasing after her sisters. And I highly related to Lacey throughout this movie because I was the youngest of 6, and I was a small little blonde child who was very clumsy and always knocking things over. So I could relate to that very, very fully. The next set of sisters come through and they're playing croquet, very violently, might I add, without a care in the world for the fact that their dad is in a meeting. They nearly decapitate their father. They knock the crown clean off his head, Jack and Jill Humpty Dumpty style. And then after that comes the 2 girls on stilts, Hadley and Isla. And the ambassador is shocked. He's like, oh, princesses, they're more like wild animals. And this really sets in the king's mind. And we jump to lunch where the king is still thinking about how the ambassador insulted his daughters. And he's like, they are kind of wild. I do need them to be proper princesses eventually. We get introductions of all the girls. First we have Ashlyn, who's the oldest. And then we have Blair, the second oldest. And something to note is that the girls are named in alphabetical order, which is nice in terms of keeping track of these 12 different characters. A lot of people think of alphabetical names being associated with Bridgerton, and the Bridgerton books did come out before this, but I really highly doubt they were related to each other. It just seems like a good naming convention in order to keep track of a lot of characters. But anyway, next we have Courtney, who loves to read. That is her main character trait. And then we have Delia, Adeline, Fallon. Ooh, we're missing the letter G. We'll come back to that in a second. And then we have the twins, Hadley and Isla, and then the triplets, Janessa, Kathleen, and Lacey, as previously mentioned. The girls are so loud and the king is trying to talk to them, but what are you gonna do when you're just one man in a room full of 12 very chatty young ladies? Genevieve, our letter G, rushes in, and one of her main personality traits is that she's like always late to everything. She's got her head in the clouds, very neurodivergent coded. And I love the little shaky cam, like first person POV we get from the king's perspective of as he's looking out at this table of 12 girls as he's trying to talk to them, and they are not paying attention to him at all. The king then finally tells them, I feel like you girls need to act more like proper princesses. And this has come completely out of nowhere. It's been however many years that the girls have been able to do whatever they want. And Ashlyn's like, proper princesses? Like what? And the king kind of goes, I don't know. He has no idea what that means either. And then a servant comes in and tells them that the royal cobbler is here. And the girls freak out, squealing, running out. They're so excited for their dancing shoes. And then we meet the love interest of this movie. It is Derek, the royal cobbler, and he has an animal sidekick, of course. It is a parrot named Felix, who is very sassy. And he has an Indian, like slash South Asian-esque accent in this.
I taught him everything he knows.
It's kind of random, trying to figure out, okay, is this supposed to take place in our world? We get a couple different hints throughout that this is in some kind of alternate reality of our world, perhaps based on the dresses, maybe like 18th century, but I don't know. It's a fictional kingdom, obviously. Felix the parrot teases Derek, saying, you have a crush on Genevieve. He burned the midnight oil for you, Genevieve. He put in all this extra work. And the parrot calls him Romeo, which is another interesting thing because it implies the existence of the story of Romeo and Juliet in this world, also implying the existence of Shakespeare. So between that and the Indian accent, and then later we get a line from Brutus the monkey when he's taunting the little cat Twyla. Twyla says, "My ancestors are from the jungles of India." So implying that it's in some version of our world where at least India and Shakespeare exist. The girls then wish to dance. Felix yanks a flute out of Derek's waistcoat and Derek is like, "Oh, don't make me play, don't make me play," and then proceeds to professionally and amazingly play the flute, and the girls have a big dance number and they get to enjoy dancing and their new dance shoes. And something really cool about the animation in these early Barbie movies especially is that they created the dances by using motion trackers on actual dancers, and you can see in the behind the scenes the motion trackers they're using, and it just makes the movements look very realistic and really beautiful, and you know that they were done by actual dancers. The queen looks out at his wonderful daughters and talks to the portrait of his dead wife, Queen Isabella, and can we just talk about what a baddie she is? Like, no wonder they had 12 gorgeous daughters. Like, look at her. No wonder he misses her so much, right? And he just looks at her portrait and says, "I love our girls so much, but I don't know what to do with them. Like, there's 12 of them and one of me. I wish you were still here." We never get a specific explanation for how the queen died. It's left vague enough to the audience, but I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the fact that she had 12 daughters. 12 daughters prior to the invention of modern medicine and antibiotics. So yeah, maybe that did it. Maybe giving birth to 12 children, and the last of those being twins and then triplets. Yeah, maybe that had something to do with her untimely passing, King Randolph. We see that the 12 princesses all share one room, and people always call this out and they're like, "Oh, they have a whole palace, why don't all the girls sleep in one room?" I don't know, random Reddit user. Maybe they love each other. Maybe they have an adorable sisterly bond. Maybe they love all sharing a room together. I'm sure they could move out if they wanted to. Why are you a hater? Why do you hate joy? Genevieve is staring at her beautiful shoes and her sisters are teasing her saying, "Ooh, is it the shoes that you like or the cobbler who made them?" And Genevieve is like, "He doesn't even think of me that way. Why would he even think of me that way? I'm just a gorgeous, perfect princess. Why would he even be attracted to me?" And her sisters tease her and we get to see their cute sisterly bond. And Genevieve is like, "Even if he did notice me," which he doesn't, it would never work. And the girls are like, "Why? Because he's not a prince?" And Genevieve says, "It's not that he's a prince, it's that he's just not even into me, okay? Leave me alone." I'm a fashion historian, so let me just geek out for a second about their Regency, like high waistline, empire waistline nightgowns that the girls have. It's really interesting because they have these like high waistline nightgowns, right? But then their day dresses have more of like an 18th century kind of waistline and then these kind of like Renaissance little puff sleeves. So it's an interesting amalgamation that they chose to use. Then Janessa says that they have lost track of one of their bugs and the other sisters freak out. They're like, "Is it a spider? What is it? Like, what is going on?" And she's like, "No, silly, he's a caterpillar." And if I were her sisters, I would be so upset that they keep all the live bugs in this room. Like, I would not trust 3 5-year-olds to keep track of these bugs. And clearly they get out very often and sometimes they're like scary spiders and stuff. We then jump right into the conflict of the movie, which is the arrival of evil cousin Duchess Rowena. She shows up in her carriage with her very punchable sidekicks, her monkey sidekick Brutus, and her very annoying and weirdly proportionally built, like weird torso to legs proportion sidekick Desmond, and they're all horrible. Immediately off the bat, just you hate them so much. Rowena is definitely inspired by like the 18th century Rococo. We see it really clearly with her skirt and with her sleeve style and with her, you know, kind of gray fancy wig she has going on. Desmond says, "What should we do about the carriage?" And Rowena menacingly says, "We won't be needing that anymore." And immediately after they get out, the carriage falls apart, okay? So it's a great metaphor for how her wealth and her fanciness is just a facade. We get the visual metaphor of Rowena standing in front of the dead queen's portrait, blotting her out, showing how she is going to be trying to take the dead queen's place. And it's a nice little visual metaphor. The king thanks Rowena for coming on such short notice and introduces her to his daughters, and Rowena is disgusted that Blair has mud on her skirt and that Fallon wants to pet her pet monkey. Lacey, like little Oliver Twist, tries to offer her a rose saying, "I picked this for you." And Rowena is evil, so of course she's just like, "Ugh, do you little gremlins have paint in your hair? Ugh." Genevieve rushes in late again, and Rowena is also disgusted by this and shames Genevieve for being late and is like, "Ugh, You called me not a moment too soon, dear cousin. They are in absolute disrepair. How will I even do this? The king announces that Rowena is going to be taking over their upbringing, and the girls are like, what do you mean? We don't need someone to come in and take charge of us. We've been doing just fine since, however long their mother has been dead. The king says that one day the girls are going to take over the kingdom, and it's like, all of them? All 12? How does that work? Are you going to like split the kingdom into 12 parts? Is it going to be like a tribunal situation? But anyway, whatever. Unfortunately, this is one of those Barbie movies where the animal sidekicks talk and we are forced to listen to these animal scenes with one another. Brutus is evil, just like his owner, and then Twyla, Genevieve's loyal little cat, gets in arguments with him. Rowena informs the girls that everything will be different now, including their attire. And when I was little, I was so confused about what attire meant. I thought it meant like a tire, like a car tire. And that was the first time I ever learned what the word attire meant. Rowena is giving the girls etiquette lessons and she's teaching them how to use these fans, and that will be important later. It'll come back in the finale. Something we noticed in this scene that will be a running gag throughout is that Rowena does not bother to learn any of their names. They correct her saying, that's not my name, and Courtney says, I'm Courtney, and Rowena says, and I'm getting impatient, okay? She's saying, I could not care less about you kids, okay? You don't even deserve names in my book. Rowena goes so far as to remove all the girls' bedspreads, their canopies, and all their hobby items, like all their personal belongings that they had, when their room was very clean and neat beforehand. Like each sister just has a single chest and it's very neat, it's very organized, but Rowena's like, we must get rid of this mess. So she sucks all the color and all the joy out of their lives, a la The Giver. She then tells the girls that they need to go to bed at 8 o'clock, which is crazy because the older girls, like Ashlyn is 24 years old and you're making a 24-year-old go to bed at 8 p.m. with her 5-year-old sisters. Like, that's crazy. And when the clock strikes, the girls are freaking out. They know Rowena will, be really upset if she comes in and anyone is out of bed. But Lacey is so little, she can't even get up on her bed, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, how has she gotten into bed like all these other times, like ever before? Like, does she have a little step stool? Like, what is this poor little girl doing? And Genevieve, of course, has a special bond with Lacey. She gets out of bed, she helps Lacey into bed, but that means that when Rowena bursts in a second later, Genevieve is out of bed. Rowena, of course, shames her and is like, late again, Genevieve. But we know that Genevieve was just trying to be a good sister and make sure that Lacey wasn't the one who got in trouble. But this will be an ongoing thing throughout the movie that Rowena just especially hates Genevieve. The girls agonize over how terrible Rowena is and say, well, maybe if Papa knew how badly she was treating us, then he might stop it. They say, Genevieve, you should talk to him, he'll listen to you. And I don't know if this is implying that, like Genevieve is the king's favorite daughter, or if it's like a Mr. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice situation where he values the opinions of some of his daughters over others. So anyway, we see that Genevieve and her father are having their regular chess match that they normally have, and Genevieve tries to bring up to him like, hey, Rowena's kind of changing everything. She's like pretty harsh on us, but of course Rowena comes crawling out of the shadows and she's been eavesdropping, and it's like, I guess I'll leave. And she's guilt tripping the king and she's like, I guess you don't need me. You'll need a whole team of tutors. Actually, the girls are so hopeless. And the king is like, no, I don't want to embarrass the girls by having a whole group of tutors come in. And that's pretty strange. Like, it was very normal for royal families to have like entire groups of tutors. Like, that was a status symbol, and I don't know why the king thinks it's instead better for this evil woman to come in instead of just having actual professionals come in to teach his daughters. Also, if they don't have tutors, who has been teaching the girls all these years? Or maybe it's just since their mother died, like maybe their mother used to teach them and then now that's changed since she died. Because Lacey and the triplets know how to read. They're 5, but they know how to read. So are we supposed to assume that their sisters taught them? I don't know. It's a little bit confusing. The king says that he doesn't want to hear another word on the matter. And this enraged me as a child. There was no worse feeling than being a little kid and an adult not believing you just because you're a kid, right? And then they believe whoever the adult is, even though the adult is lying to them. And you're just like, I feel so crazy and so powerless in this moment. So I feel like that's a very relatable, thing for the kids watching this, that sense of injustice when an adult doesn't believe you. Genevieve is trying to communicate to her dad. She's trying to be straightforward, but he believes the opinion of this random woman over his own child. And Rowena is so rude in this scene. She's like, girls are so emotional. And it's such like boy mom pick me energy. It's like, ugh. Rowena then offers the king a cup very suspiciously, and that will be again foreshadowing for later. The next day they wake up the triplets with a special birthday song, but of course Rowena bursts in and says, birthdays are canceled. Lacey is so sad and she's like, oh no, birthdays are canceled. And Rowena is so evil. She's like, you know what? Also, no singing and no dancing. Joy is outlawed. The way Rowena acts throughout this movie is crazy because princesses are higher ranking than duchesses, right? And Ashlyn is presumably the heir to the throne, so it's like, if Rowena had any sense, she would know that you cannot anger the people who are next in line for the throne. Like, girl, she's gonna guillotine you when she gets the chance. But as we'll see very quickly, Rowena has no intention of any of the girls taking over the throne. They read the story, which is about a princess who danced on these stones in a specific order, twirling 3 times on the last stone. And when she did that, a portal to a magical enchanted kingdom opened up. And she was able to dance and dance and dance there. And there were flowers covered in jewels and trees made of gold and silver. But after 3 nights, the magical land disappeared, never to be seen again. Lacey accidentally drops her book on the floor, and it just so happens to slide right to the corresponding flower on the stones. And for the first time, the girls realize, oh, the flowers on the cover of our books perfectly match the flowers on the stone circle in the center of our room. I don't know how they never noticed this before, because they say that each girl gets her book on her 5th birthday. So Ashlyn has had her book for 19 years, and they've presumably been living in this room. So how have they never noticed that their flowers correspond with the stones? I get that the 3 little girls didn't have their books yet, but I don't know. Whatever. You know what? We're gonna just let the magic happen. When Genevieve dances on the stones in order from the oldest to youngest and then twirls on the last one, the magical portal to the enchanted kingdom opens and the girls are so excited. There's even a safety handrail, which lets you know that their mother definitely had a hand in this. The girls get in an enchanted boat, a la the Hogwarts boats. They just magically go to the destination they need to go to, and it takes them to the beautiful magical pavilion, and the girls are able, once they're there, to wish for music, and they dance and dance all night to their heart's content. The girls frolic, but then Lacey trips and scrapes her knee, and she's like, why does this always happen to me? Genevieve washes off her knee, and just like Percy Jackson, this water magically heals her, okay? This is magical water, and it can seemingly heal any wound. Very important. Come back to that later. The next morning, the girls are completely exhausted since they spent all night dancing, and Rowena is very upset, being like, pull it together. And Rowena is very upset. She's demanding to know where they were and why they're so exhausted, but then someone named Mr. Fabian comes to visit her and she rushes off. Genevieve peeks through the window and sees Rowena having a very weird encounter with this man, Mr. Fabian, and seemingly takes some mysterious object with him. The king summons his daughters to come visit him, and they all see how tired and exhausted he is, and he's clearly not doing well. Brutus pokes through the girls' belongings, and Twyla comes in saying like, hey, you can't be in here. But then Brutus finds Genevieve's shoes and takes it to Rowena, and Rowena thinks, oh, the girls must have been out dancing with princes. And I don't know why she jumps to this conclusion. Like, are there nearby princes? Is there a really close kingdom nearby? Like, why would she automatically assume this? But anyway, Rowena is furious. The girls sing to their dad to try to cheer him up, but then Rowena comes in and shoos them out, saying that he needs to rest. Genevieve suggests that they call for the doctor, much to Rowena's annoyance. The doctor then says that if the king takes this medicine, he'll be better in no time. Rowena, of course, dumps the medicine out, and the king is so oblivious throughout all of this. Like, Rowena is doing all this shady stuff and like comically, villainously, like twisting her mustache in the corner, and the king's just like, la 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 la, cousin Rowena, I'll trust you with everything. Derek brings the girls their new shoes, and he's surprised that they're already worn through and that they're covered in golden glitter. Genevieve asks Derek if he can do her a favor, and of course he's very willing to help out however he can. Genevieve says that she doesn't trust Rowena and that he wants her to try to find this Mr. Fabian guy, implying that she trusts Derek enough to carry out this mission for her. That night, Rowena tells Desmond to sit outside the girls' room and track their every move. This is very creepy that this grown man is going to be spying on all these girls. And Desmond just continues throughout the movie to be a freak. But it doesn't matter that Desmond is guarding the door because the girls, of course, are using the portal in their room to escape. They return back to the magical land and they're able to dance again and have a wonderful time. The girls have the entire night to forget about Rowena and her rules. They wish to be dressed like ballerinas, and they each get these gorgeous ballet tutu versions of their regular dresses. Meanwhile, Derek is tracking Mr. Fabian. Derek is able to corner him, and Fabian finally admits that he did sell something to Rowena. He almost didn't sell her anything because everyone knows Rowena does not pay her debts. But she had something of value and did pay. Mr. Fabian then shows a silver goblet to Derek, and Derek reads the inscription and realizes that the goblet belonged to Queen Isabella, and that Rowena has been stealing from the palace to pay for this. Derek, of course, wants to get the goblet back, so he says, okay, how can I buy it back from you? And Mr. Fabian says, ooh, you're talking bird, that would be a good price. And Felix is like, Derek, you won't really sell me, right? But Derek does end up selling his horse, which is a much bigger loss, really, because that horse definitely would have been his most valuable belonging. But he doesn't want to sell Felix, which I understand because they're friends, but whatever. Felix is annoying. Derek then has to carry his carriage all by himself all the way back to the palace. Desmond reports to Rowena that the girls were there all night and that no one came in and out, but the girls' shoes are worn through again, and Rowena is so upset. She lines the girls up and demands that they tell her the truth. The triplets, they're little kids. They don't know that they're supposed to, hide anything. So they're like, we went to a magical land. And Rowena is so upset. She's like, stop lying to me or you will all pay. And Genevieve is like, you can't talk to her like that. Like, you're scaring her. And then Rowena says, oh, you're talking back? You're no better than a common maid. Actually, I'm going to treat you all like common maids, and maybe that'll loosen your tongues. She then commands the girls to clean the front garden and scrub the front steps. King Randolph, if you were afraid of embarrassing your daughters by bringing in a team of tutors, do you know what's actually humiliating? Having the 12 princesses of the kingdom out scrubbing the front steps, right? This is unheard of for royalty. Obviously, Rowena is trying to humiliate them, but this is not a good look for the king. And just imagine if the girls get rough, callous hands from this. That is a big no-no for princesses, especially in this era. The girls spend all day cleaning and wish that they could sing to pass the time. Then Lacey unfortunately trips and drops all of her leaves. She runs off, afraid that everyone's gonna be mad at her. Genevieve goes to comfort Lacey and says, you know what, accidents happen. And Lacey says, why can't I just be good at anything? Courtney's great at reading and Blair's great at horseback riding, but I'm not good at anything. And Genevieve says, you probably don't remember this, but Mom used to always say, whether you're big or small, anyone can make a difference. And it's interesting the way Genevieve words this. She was alive at least long enough to maybe have said something that the triplets could remember. So how long ago did the mom die? 2 years ago? Unclear. Genevieve brings Lacey to Papa to cheer Lacey up, but then they accidentally overhear a snippet of a conversation where it sounds like their dad is calling them burdens. Genevieve and Lacey leave feeling very dejected. It's a common movie trope where characters only hear part of a conversation and get the wrong impression. After the girls leave, the king tells Rowena, they're not burdens. I love them so much. They're the best thing about my life, which obviously annoys Rowena. We then see that Rowena has been pouring a mysterious liquid into the king's tea, explaining why he has become sicker and sicker. Rowena is so bad at doing crimes. She bought a mysterious vial from a man in broad daylight on the palace grounds, and the king is still so oblivious. Rowena storms into the room and is so mad that she thinks the girls are lying to her. She locks them in the room and tells them that it's their fault that their dad is sick, which is so manipulative. The girls are heartbroken that they've put so much pressure on their father, and they're like, maybe it'd be better if you just weren't even here. We'll give Papa some time to get better. So they escape into the portal and decide that they're gonna hide out there until some time passes. The next morning, Rowena is flabbergasted that the girls are gone. How did they even escape? But you know what? It's better off for her that they're not here anyway. Rowena then tells the doctor that the king hasn't been the same since his dear wife Isabella died, and the doctor immediately accepts this as an explanation. He's like, oh, well, if it's heartbreak, then medicine won't help. Sir, you are a physician, okay? This random woman tells you that he's dying of heartbreak, and you're like, oh, okay, let me just chuck out this medicine then. I mean, I guess it is the 18th century, so what was he gonna do? Put leeches on him? Probably something equally unhelpful. Derek finally manages to drag his cart all the way to the palace, and presumably this took him all day and night to do. He talks to the butler, and the butler's like, the princesses are gone, which of course freaks Derek out. But then Desmond grabs the butler and throws him, and we get this comical sound of the man being thrown. And away! And then Desmond tells Derek to get lost. But Derek, one thing about Derek is he's gonna do anything for his girl. He sneaks up into the princess's tower, and the sun has set by this point, so it's did it take Derek that long to climb all the way up, or did he wait until nightfall so he had a better chance of people not seeing him? Either way, Derek is able to sneak his way into the princess's tower, and then he uses his big brain powers of deduction to see that, okay, there's shoe polish on certain parts of the stones, here's where it's the thickest, and then he remembers that earlier Genevieve was dancing in a certain pattern. So then he follows the pattern on the steps, and the magical portal opens. But oh no, Brutus the monkey saw the entire thing, and now he knows the secret. Oblivious to everything going on back home, the girls are in their enchanted land and they wish for dancing partners. The golden statue comes to life and is able to dance with them, and I always thought this was very creepy. I did not think this was like cute or anything. I was horrified by this automaton golden statue thingy with a blank stare. Brutus shows Rowena how to open the portal, and he is so smug here. He is so annoying. Derek explains that Rowena traded the queen's goblet in order to get this vial from the apothecary, and Genevieve learns that Derek sold his horse in order to get the goblet back, and she's just speechless, and Derek acts of service king. Rowena then sneaks in to spy on the girls, and she sees the secret that they've been going to this magical pavilion every night. She sees Derek but doesn't notice or remark on him at all, so maybe she's just assuming that he's one of the princes that she thought the girls were dancing with. She then commands Brutus to steal some of the magical flowers. Over at the pavilion, the girls realize that they need to warn Papa about all this evil stuff that Rowena has been doing. They're like, okay, we need to escape. And the way they keep saying Papa over and over again, it just reminds me of Eleven from Stranger Things, the way they just say Papa so much. The girls know that since this is the third night, if they leave now, the kingdom will disappear forever. But they know that it's more important to go and save their dad. It's crazy that this story has all happened over the course of a couple days, essentially. Barbie says one of the themes of the movie, which is we're princesses. We can't turn our backs when things get difficult. Papa needs us. The girls all decide to head back, but at that moment, poof, their boat disappears. We cut up to see that Rowena is commanding Desmond to destroy all the stones. And as he destroys the stones, we lose the portal, we lose the stairway, we lose their way out. And in Rowena's head, she's probably like, this will keep them locked in there forever. And for all Rowena knows, this could kill them, but she does not care. Rowena gives the king more poison and he's asking, where are my daughters? And she, of course, says, they haven't visited you yet? Oh, they're so irresponsible, making it look like the daughters are the bad guys, even though she's been purposely keeping and has now locked away forever his daughters. Rowena then manipulates the king into naming her as the queen in his stead until he can heal. He signs his will and they bring out the actual tiara from his dead wife. Like, this is so horrible. And then Rowena puts on the crown and she's gotten everything that she wanted. The girls are actually only trapped for a couple of minutes because Genevieve realizes, hey, we could just wish to know the way out. So they wish for that, and then the stones on the floor grow and they realize, oh, we danced our way in, we can dance our way out. So Genevieve tries to dance on the stones, it doesn't work. Derek tries to dance on the stones, it doesn't work. But then when they dance together, for some reason, this ignites the power of the magical stones. And they do this romantic pas de deux dance sequence together. And then all the sisters start dancing and they're able to float up into the air and dance their way out of the enchanted kingdom. Back in the dystopian nightmare, Rowena tells the guards that if they see the princesses, they should throw them all in the dungeon. Their floating dancing leads them to their mother's dance pavilion in the garden, and they're sad that they'll never be able to see the enchanted land again. Genevieve says that they need to find Papa, but then they overhear a guard saying that Rowena is now queen, much to her shock, and that the princesses are traitors, and if anyone sees the princesses, they need to throw them in the dungeon. And worst of all, the guard says that Papa is so sick, he's not even gonna last the night. The girls are all worried about these new dangers, but Genevieve reminds them they have something Rowena doesn't. The power of friendship. No, I'm just kidding, it's not that. It's the power of 12, which is kind of the same vibe, but essentially they're gonna use the fact that they have a huge team of people, more than a basketball team, in order to defeat Rowena. We then get this amazing sequence where the girls each get to use their special little talents and hobbies in order to help defeat the guards. Ashlyn and Blair make a trip line to knock this guard over, which definitely will leave him with some kind of brain damage, and then Blair rides off on her horse to go get the doctor using her equestrian skills. Rowena then has the nerve to replace the beautiful Queen Isabella's portrait with her own creepy, ugly mug. Talk about a downgrade. Delia and Adeline yeet these croquet balls into the guards' heads, definitely giving them CTE, and it's a fun little callback to the opening scene where they, knocked their dad's crown off his head. Hadley and Isla use their stilts to confuse the guards, and Genevieve, Derek, and the other sisters use this as an opportunity to sneak into the palace. Genevieve lures Desmond away from his post, Derek trips him, and then Courtney pushes this cart directly into Desmond's gut, and then they roll him all the way into this closet and lock him in. Meanwhile, Genevieve told the triplets not to move, right? She doesn't want these 5-year-olds involved in this palace coup situation, but Lacey says, I have this vial of the magical water that I took and I need to get it to Genevieve. And so Lacey runs off and the other sisters are like, no, Lacey, she told us to stay right here. Don't do this. Rowena finally reveals how evil she is to the king, and the king is so shocked and it's like, you are so naive. Like, it took her literally saying she hopes that you die for you to realize that she's evil. Like, Randolph, what is wrong with you? Genevieve and Derek burst into the room, and Rowena uses one of her magical flowers to wish for suits of armor to protect her. And Desmond escapes. Boo! I want him locked away forever. He's so annoying. And then Felix runs into Brutus, and then Felix and Twyla have to fight Brutus, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the animal side plots. I'm sorry. I just don't. And then back in the king's room, we see that Rowena is chanting for these suits of armor to kill these teenagers, right? One of whom is her like second cousin. And Genevieve almost gets skewered like a kebab. Like, legit, they are in actual physical danger. Then Desmond spots Lacey, and like a creep, the freak that he is, he immediately kidnaps her. Derek is able to kneecap the first suit of armor, and then Genevieve uses an actual like flail mace to take out the other suit of armor. Genevieve tells Rowena that, hey, it's over. But then Desmond bursts in and he's holding Lacey as hostage. So then Rowena has the brilliant idea to use her last wishing flower, and she says, fine, Genevieve, I'm gonna give you what you always wanted. I wish that you would dance forever and ever and ever. But Genevieve actually uses Rowena's training against her. She whips out her fan and she's able to blow the magical sparkles back onto Rowena and Desmond, cursing them to dance forever and ever and ever, giving her a taste of her own medicine, quite literally. And, you know, hopefully they dance and dance and dance until they collapse of exhaustion and die. It's a good thing that Lacey brought this vial because the king is not doing well. He has passed out. So Lacey gives the vial to their dad and hooray, he's able to wake up and he's healed. And the girls are like, Papa, we're so sorry that we weren't proper princesses. And he's like, no, 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 I was wrong. All of you are beautiful and perfect, and I never want any of you to change. Like, I'm so sorry that I didn't see that. So we get this wonderful reunion. We then jump cut to a romantic wedding between Genevieve and Derek. We see the sisters riding in this huge carriage, and you could actually buy the toy version of this carriage in real life. But Derek and Genevieve are getting married, and you know, Genevieve might be 16, but we're just gonna blow right past that, okay? We're just gonna have to ignore that so that we can enjoy this movie, okay? It's an early Barbie movie, so it has to end with a wedding, and you know what? We'll just have to use Disney princess rules or something. It is a little bit strange that Genevieve is like the middle sister and that she's getting married first, but you know, the only guy they know is Derek, and he's presumably also Genevieve's age, so I guess it makes sense. And then we get another beautiful pas de deux scene between Derek and Genevieve, and the whole family dances, and we get this beautiful ending number, and they dance off into the sunset, and they all live happily ever after. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. And you know what? This completely held up. I love this movie. It had so much more depth than I remember, and it's a lot darker than I remember. Like all the Rowena stuff, and then, you know, Barbie almost being skewered. Like, I feel like the later Barbie movies are so much more afraid to like do anything actually like scary. So it's nice to see actual like fairy tale conventions, like being cursed to dance and all these other things, and like the evil, you know, cousin trying to like scheme for the throne, and we have assassination attempts and coups and all this stuff. But let me know what Barbie movie or any other media you'd like me to review next. I think I want to do Princess and the Pauper because that is the other one that sticks out as like top tier Barbie in my mind. But anyway,